Hello, this is a recording for my colleague and my collaborator Allard Röbrek, where I'm going to show the first steps of how I started segmenting his very high resolution 100 micron isotropic human brain data. Okay, first things first, let's have a look at the data a little bit. I'm opening ITK Snap and loading Allard's data. Okay, here I can do Command J in ITK Snap to automatically adjust the brightness or optimize the dynamic range. So as you can see, this is not the whole human brain data, but this is the part that I have cropped out of it. And particularly, this is one of the easy parts to segment in the brain. That's why I choose it for this video, just to show you the first steps. And this is the Heschel's gyrus. The data went through a couple of steps. Maybe I can briefly show that. Here you can see that I have a folder called scripts for Allard's data. And I will not talk about all of them because some of them I used to explore a few other things. But first I loaded Allard's data, named written here, in FSL eyes because the other software actually crashed trying to load this data. And once I loaded it, I determined the tight bounding box that is around the cerebral cortex, which is written here. So I determined some ranges of x, y, z relative to the data axis. And I have just extracted the voxels in that range. So I already like get rid of some of the size of the data. Some voxels are out now. And while doing that, I also looked and determined that I can actually optimize the data type a little bit, which the original data was in float 32. So this can be casted to unsigned integer 16 precision, which gives us a bit of more flexibility with regards to the storage space. Therefore, I load the data, I basically clip the 20 as a value and cast it into unsigned integer range. So this is just to say that I really try to optimally preserve the floating point precision data range. And I think the results are pretty okay. And it makes it much faster to visualize and work with this data. So this is a necessary step. And of course, like knowing the maximum threshold and how it is scaled, we can always go back to the original floating point precision range if we need from the integer range. But anyway, basically I fix a few parameters that are usually important, like so these are important to run a few other programs on it, because sometimes the like smoothing, or in some programs the kernel sizes are dependent on the nifty header in millimeter voxel size information. That's why I have these lines between 51 to 55 to say that this is a 0.1 millimeter isotropic dataset. Okay, once this is done, I had the whole brain data, but the next step was for segmentation was to crop it even further so that I can really in a fast way work with the regions in this data. I have determined 3 regions, calcarean sulcus and the Heschel's gyri in either side of the hemispheres. And now I'm going to only talk about one of these ROIs to show my segmentation. So now the cool part about this little script, and this can be done in other ways as well, like I just happen to use Python here, but it's not so necessary. As you know, where this set of voxels are taken out, you can also put them back in. So what I imagine in the future for segmenting this whole brain data set and really quality controlling in a detailed way is to take pieces out of it, maybe assign it to different people. I can also do more regions maybe. And then once the segmentation is done, we can put it back to the whole brain data. And piece by piece, basically, we can puzzle together the final segmentation. Of course, there will be things to do to stitch this segmentation correctly and like a final whole brain segmentation checks and so forth. But yeah, let's leave it for later for now. Okay, I have cropped the data. I have cropped even a smaller part of it. Now I'm starting to segment it. So here is my data set, and maybe this view can be a bit easier to comprehend. This one, where now I am at the medial part of the Heschel's gyrus, and then I'm coming closer to the lateral part of the Heschel's gyrus. And my intention in what I did, and I showed these results to Allard already, is not to segment everything in this or like not to analyze everything in this cropped image, but only analyze the part of the Heschel's gyrus that is enough to hold a disk. So hopefully this will come clear a bit later what I'm doing, but yeah, let's start to segment this area first. And one crucial thing that you need to see at the beginning is that this is a rather noisy dataset from the perspective of segmentation algorithms. Like it is not so clear to see the transition between these two tissue types, at least with regards to like conventional MRI I'm talking about. So I do not expect. So let's put it like this. What I'm going to show you here is what I do when everything else fails in getting the segmentation. So this is the simplest thing to do if you have no other solutions. And with this method, I did segment like okapi brain in the past, a dolphin brain, lots of weird exotic brains that are acquired with like again exotic imaging sequences and so forth. Okay, anyway, I did run a filter on this dataset, and that is called the nonlinear anisotropic diffusion based filter. You can see the effect here, or the result of this filter. So you can see that this is a very nice edge preserving filter. I have used my own implementation, and I can show you where it is. Segmentator, wiki, and nonlinear anisotropic smoothing. So you can read more about it here, looking at this website. This is my own implementation, and probably next year I will make it a bit faster, implement it in C and so forth. But anyway, I ran this filter and attained this denoised image. So now this denoised image is easier to start segmenting. But before doing that, I will have another step. So I am going to take this denoised image. You can see that there's a bit of a texture going on in this image, this grainy texture. This is due to a minor issue that I have in my current implementation. And actually, normally I first upsample my images to double resolution and then run this filter. However, since this data is already at 100 micron resolution and I wanted to run my filter for the whole brain, I skipped that step. And at the end, I had to deal with this little graininess. But there's a way to address it, at least for the segmentation. I am going to take this image and I'm going to smooth it a bit. I'm going to use a simple program called NeMath. And this has a very simple Gaussian filter implemented in it. So I'm going to put 0.1. This is the full width half maximum of the Gaussian kernel, and it's written in the voxel size dimensions. That's why I fixed the voxel size in the Nifty header at the beginning. Otherwise, I should have put 1 here. Anyway, like let's give it an output name. Let's call it smooth. So this will run and give us a slightly smoothed version of this image so that we don't have this graininess. And that is important for the tool that I have in mind for segmenting this data with later. Okay, so you can see that now this image is blurrier, of course, that's what we wanted. And now using this image, I'm going to compute another, I will derive another image from it. It's called the gradient magnitude image. For that, I'm going to use Laney ln2 grammac command. It basically computes the gradients in XYZ axes and then does square root of the sum of the squares over the vector field that is derived and gives us a scalar measurement that relates to the first derivative of the image, the grammac image. I'm going to load it here. Okay, so now the importance of this grammac image is that it helps us to see the boundaries a bit better. I find it quite useful when I'm doing segmentation work as a support image. So for instance, let's have a look at here where I remember struggling to segment this part quite a bit because like there is not really a clear boundary between white matter and gray matter here. And of course, there might be reasons for it. let's say maybe A1 is here and there is like a very smooth or highly myelinated transition. But nevertheless, you need to put some borders there, right? When we are doing the gray matter segmentation. So in my experience, when you start from the original image that is, let's say, a bit noisy, denoise it a bit, smooth it a bit if needed, and compute gradient magnitude on it, this is a good image to at least guess correctly where the boundary is. And you can see that already where we didn't have too much of an idea where the exact boundary is, or it's like hard to see, you need to squint looking at it. With the gradient magnitude image, you can kind of start seeing it. Still tricky at places, but at some point you need to use your intuition, of course. Okay, now I am going to actually restart ITK Snap. And first thing to do, I'm going to put my smoothed denoised image in it. And then I'm going to put my support image, that is the gradient magnitude. Okay. So now let's start to segment our region of interest. So, okay, here there's a very important tool that you need to have. I highly advise you to have it, and that's a drawing tablet. This is from a company called Wacom, and this is an Intuos series, Intuos Pro, I think. And there are very expensive versions of this drawing tablet, and there are very cheap versions, but I recommend you to have the middle ground, because what you need is a density, like high density of receptors here, so that when you are going to use a pen on it, you will have a very nice flexible motion range. So doing this basically requires that you have this tablet, you put it in front of you. Maybe I can show you like this. And then using your dominant hand, you can practice drawing on it. Basically, your eyes will be looking at the screen and your hand will be on the tablet. In my experience, for people who has never done it, it takes around a week or 2 weeks to get used to this. But if you push through and get used to doing it, you will gain a lot of speed for what I'm going to show you. Basically, what I'm going to show you is not possible to do with the mouse. You will get a carpal tunnel syndrome otherwise. Okay, now let's go back to segmentation. I am now using my drawing tablet. So this is not my only way of attacking this segmentation problem, but I'm going to show you the simplest way. Okay, so now I loaded the smoothed denoised image, and I loaded the gradient magnitude image derived from it. And I'm going to show you the simplest method of start doing the segmentation. So I will go to the brush in ITK Snap. Like, you might benefit from getting familiar with this toolbox. Then I'm going to choose the adaptive brush, and you can increase the size of it, and let's make it 3D. And you can see that there are two important parameters, granularity and smoothness. When you hover over it, they explain what they do. But basically, to have the initial segmentation quickly done in a small region of interest, this is what I would do. I go here, and then you can start clicking. So usually 40 can be a bit too much. You can have it a bit smoother. So at this initial segmentation, do not worry if things doesn't look too good, because we are just establishing a point to start from. And now let's do it. One important part of doing this adaptive brushwork is that you should not drag and draw. You should just pinpoint, click, and remove. Because if you drag and draw, there's a bug in ITK Snap and it might crash. So you need to basically just click and get the region expanded. So let the adaptive brush just grow and figure out the boundary. So again, like, I am not trying to make a comprehensive segmentation. This is just to show you the initial point. And of course, any step can be improved, needless to say. Okay. I also have another video actually that I shoot for some people at NIH. I can link to that one if you want to see a bit more in detail how I work with, like in some other areas or ROIs. But more or less, I use similar tools. Okay, I mean, there will be some errors, and for now it's fine because we are now leveraging a semi-automatic tool that is the adaptive brush. And the errors are okay to some degree. Okay, now this is more or less done. Let's see. So now the second step is to go to active label. Oh, it doesn't show. The second step is to go to the active label and change it to label 2. And we can make it only color the parts that we didn't color yet. So we can choose clear label from here. So that when we are clicking, let's say around there, it will not overwrite the red. Okay, now let's continue to do it. You can see that when the image contrast is pretty high, it does an easy job. If it is not so high, it struggles a bit. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. I was actually unsure whether I should shoot this video or not because I'm not sure if I can deliver all my thought process as I'm doing it. Like each segmentation is slightly different and you might need to adjust for things on the go. Okay. Alright, just do this gyrus and not too much. Okay, now let's have a look at it from other angles. By the way, I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4 that can allow you to switch between different tools in ITK Snap. I mostly use 1 and 4, just as a quick hint. Let's switch views and see what we did. So as you can see, it's very crude. It's okay. Let's have a look at it in 3D. So this is another view. You can see more or less what's going on. Okay, this looks all right. Now let's continue a bit more, segmenting the outer gray matter or outside of the gray matter part. This I always do 3 tissue segmentation, and this is beneficial for some other tools that I'm going to use. So now I switch to brush 3, and again I will only paint the clean parts of the image. Maybe I can change the color of this blue a bit. It's a bit too dark. Make it slightly more lighter color. So you see that there's a kissing gyrus there, but that's okay for now. Think of it a bit like sculpturing. We are trying to carve out like a general idea of this region. And then as we progress in the segmentation process, we will carve out better and better. I sometimes you actually like when I segmented your data first, that was 2 weeks ago, I used simple intensity thresholding to get my initial segmentation. I didn't do exactly like this, but that is a bit more convoluted to deal with. And I thought it would take too much for me to explain a video. So that's why I'm showing you this method, which I did use for the Calcarean sulcus, for instance. I was doing exactly this in the Calcarean sulcus. Whenever you see like empty space, just fill in roughly. Okay, let's have a look at the 3D view, something like this. By the way, you can choose this one, this button, and then you can start clicking on the 3D view. That is actually rather useful because it gives you, like here, for instance, we didn't fill in the outside of the gray matter tissue completely. So we can maybe fill in a little bit more there, update. Then go here, fill in a bit more, update. You can see that it's slightly in time filling in. Okay, this rough segmentation is more or less done. Let's save it. Let's call it subject 39, crop, facial gyrus 1, and segmentation version 01. Okay. So now I have this file that I have just generated. What I'm going to show you is a very useful tool that I use a lot in many different segmentations. And that is basically take whatever I have and pass it through a few functions in Laney. First one is I'm in the Laney folder, as you can see, ln2 remify. You can read the readme of this file, but this is basically a simple, like rather simple program. So I'm going to put the segmentation there. Then I'm going to determine what was my inner gray matter. That was label 1. What was my outer gray matter? Label 2. And gray matter. That was, outer gray matter was label 3 and gray matter was label 2. Once you enter that, it will create something called rim. This is just a convenience for us, Laney users, let's say. It basically switches around the labels a little bit and puts it into the way that Laney likes or thinks about. It's just like different integers. But anyway, like using this file, now I can use a very useful program called ln2 rim polish. So this tool is inspired by a few operations in Brain Voyager, but it is not exactly those operations, it's slightly different. But basically what it does is that it combines a set of morphological operations, dilation, erosion, together with like smoothing, iterative smoothing, and binarizing them and putting them back together in a certain stepwise manner. It basically tries to really like polish out rough segmentations to make it almost correct. Okay, let's run it and see what will happen. So I'm going to increase the steps here because your data is 100 micron, whereas I usually make the defaults chosen for 0.2 millimeter isotropic images. So I'm going to just double some of the things, steps, and the iter smooth. The smoothing iterations will be double as well. Okay, now let's wait a little bit. Okay, it is done. Now let's load this file and see what's going on. Okay, I can also load the old one for us to compare. So in this polished segmentation, you can see that some of these rough edges are taken care of automatically. Or let me show it like this, maybe. This is, of course, like not good enough at all. This is just the initial rough step. Okay, so now, basically the rest is more or less repeating what I have already done. I can clear this and... Okay, now, let's clean things up a little bit. So for instance, let's determine a slice that we want our segmentation to end. And let's say it should be 220. Okay, so now I can start cleaning my initial segmentation a bit. I am choosing clear label here and I'm choosing paint over all labels. I am disabling the 3D option so that I only have control over 2D slices. And I'm going to choose just a regular brush, not the adaptive brush, and make it really large. And I will just cut this part out of the segmentation to give it a sharp edge. Okay, so just to show you, now you can see that we have a clean side here. Now let's do the same for the other side. Oh, it's actually a nice number, 100. Let this be our last slice. And in 99, everything is going to blank. Okay, it's already basically there. So now, the next step is a bit of an elbow grease. Maybe all of the steps are in this video. I select the active label, now it is 3 for the gray matter, and paint over clear label. So now, I can use ASD buttons in the keyword to adjust the transparency. You can see, and I will choose a circular brush, and I will kind of like try to fill in these gaps. Okay, now let's do it for all the slices roughly. Again, not so not so precisely yet. So one strategy that I do is that I focus on an area and then I use my left hand to go across slices. This is faster than going slice by slice and trying to correct each slice. But it is also a bit more advanced way of using the drawing tablet, so it's fine if you cannot immediately do it. But just for the time's sake, I'm going to try to be as fast as possible now. Okay, this was too much. Oops. So now let's correct the gray. Let's correct the white matter a little bit. Now I can choose a bit smaller brush. Yeah. And roughly correct the holes that I see. This part is a bit rough. We need to take care of it. Oh, this part is rather rough. Let's fix it. Do the same for the outside. Okay, so basically you do this uh, for some time. Make sure that everything is nicely patched, and gaps like this sulcus are filled in as much as possible. Fixed. So just to speed things up a bit because I'm getting tired at the end of the day. So what I do is actually the following. I usually have versions of my segmentation files or RIM files, and I keep track of them by giving simple versions to them. And time to time, I run ln2 RIM polish. Okay, load the new one. Every time it gets a bit smoother, a bit like it corrects little things, or if I have some zigzags over slices, maybe it's possible to see better like here. It corrects them a bit better. And of course, all these little things you need to fix in time. And run ln2 rim polish again and again and so forth. So now I would like to switch to, just to skip ahead in time a bit, a version of this file that I already spent, I think, around 4 hours on. Save. So you can see that here I have segmented quite nicely, quite a bit of it. And again, like I just repeated what I was showing you. Every iteration, be a bit more careful, be a bit more precise, and over time, reach to a segmentation that really looks and feels correct. I was focused around here, but I happen to segment there for other reasons. And one useful tool that I would like to show you at the end is that you can actually hide all your labels aside from a single one. For instance, you can only have a look at your white matter here. So this is the Heschel's gyrus part. You can inspect, and if you see unnatural curves or edges here, you know that something went wrong in the segmentation. You should go there and fix it. Like you can jump there. Okay. Let's have a look at our gray matter maybe. See, things are coming together. And once you reach to a stage where you do like the segmentation, from that point onwards, you can, for instance, use this one, ln2 layers. There are a few parameters to this program, but now I will show you a default run of it. It's running, computing stuff. It's generating some files. For instance, this layers file we can load here and see. And the file here that is called mid-gray matter. I am showing you this because when your segmentation is wrong, this line usually goes in the wrong places. Then there's like another way of knowing, oh, I made a big mistake here. Let me go back and fix it and keep polishing. Okay. This is also a good file to visualize. Let's not hide it. Let's show it. As you can see, my local tissue boundary looks good. Mid-gray matter, equidistant. So anyway, this is the brute force way of doing the segmentation. I am sure that there are steps that can be sped up and there are a few other tools, but they like I can only show them case by case when things are not working, or if you are really frustrated doing this type of work, if it's not scalable enough, there are other directions to go to speed things up a bit. But for like ROI by ROI, small ROI basis, like A1, B1, or M1, S1, let's say, we can proceed like this and get good segmentations out of it. And the good part is that the Laney tools that I have written, they are exactly built for this type of partial coverage segmentation. So there are many decisions in these tools that are specifically made for these cases. That is not whole brain. You only segment a piece of the cortex, not all of it. And the layers and other stuff, cortical parameterization and so forth, works for that. So that's the whole like pipeline. And of course, like once you get used to the Laney tools and doing the segmentation, a bit gaining experience, you will see like some shortcuts and why I did like this and not the other way and so forth. But yeah, we see. Like, hopefully one day we will not need to be doing this work and this will be totally automatic. But anyway, that's it for now. Hope it is useful. Feel free to send me your questions or comments later and good luck.